The sky above Thornfall Academy churned like an angry sea. A thick, dark mix of gas, storm striations, and smog-heavy clouds pulsed with bioelectric discharge, sending bursts of violet lightning flickering across the jagged mountain ridges that framed the Academy's perimeter. The storms were a constant at Thornfall, a reminder of the hostile world that the Academy had chosen as its home. The landscape was barren and jagged, with rocky peaks and deep ravines, where the winds howled like beasts in search of prey. The Academy was a fortress surrounded by danger, a place where the strongest and most battle-hardened species in the galaxy came to train. But none of them had ever seen a human cadet before. Cadet Marcus Hale was that anomaly. "Get moving, human!" shouted a voice from behind. Marcus didn't need to look up to know who it was. Threx, the squad leader. A towering alien with skin like volcanic basalt, armor-plated and lethal, stood watching with his arms crossed. His eyes, dark, multifaceted, were locked on Marcus, judging him with quiet disdain. The alien cadets, including Threx, weren't bothered by the elements, but Marcus was. Every step felt like an eternity as he struggled to keep pace with the rest of the squad, his environmental suit growing heavier by the minute under the weight of his oxygen pack. His boots squelched with every step as the air around him grew thicker. Sweat clung to the inside of his suit, pooling in places that made him want to scream. 5 days into integration training, and his suit smelled of scorched nylon and dried blood. His ribs were sore from a previous training session, and he could already feel bruises forming underneath the thick layers of fabric. The pain was nothing new. He'd been hurting ever since he arrived at Thornfall, but the ache was a constant reminder of the trials he had yet to endure. The other cadets watched, but not the instructors. Those massive insected tacticians with gleaming eye plates and exoskeletal armor only cared when someone collapsed. It was the others who were watching, alien species from death worlds and high-pressure planets. Warriors from planets where survival itself was a battle. They studied him with their alien eyes, observing him like an experiment, curious to see if the soft-skinned human would survive. The thought stung, but Marcus kept his gaze focused ahead. "Keep going, just keep going," he muttered to himself. The rest of the squad had already crested the hill, and Marcus was still struggling up the slope of Ash Hill, his heart pounding in his chest. "Pathetic," said a voice from behind him. The alien's words were thick with contempt, its mandibles clicking. "Soft-skinned mammal." It came from Correct, a tall, metallic-frilled quadruped from Drellin VI. His triple-lung system gave him the stamina to outlast most fuel cells, and Marcus could hear the alien's heavy footsteps, confident and sure. "I'm watching him sweat through his outer shell," said another voice. This one was lower, weightier, Threx, the squad leader. His tone was more direct, a combination of boredom and challenge. Marcus didn't respond. He didn't need to. He wasn't here for them. He wasn't here for their pity or their mockery. He was here to prove something, not just to them, but to himself. The hill kept rising. Training at Thornfall wasn't designed for cooperation. It was a culling gauntlet, a forge of attrition. The Academy's environments rotated every week, offering a new trial designed to break even the most resilient cadets. From ammonia rains to vacuum spikes, sudden gravitational shifts to sonic pressure traps, there was no mercy. Yet Marcus hadn't quit. He should have. Everyone had told him he would. Humans weren't built for these kinds of trials. They were soft, fragile. It was expected that he would last maybe a day, 2 at most. But Marcus had endured for 5 days. 5 long days. His breathing came in short, shallow bursts. The atmosphere here was thick, almost suffocating. And the air wasn't just heavy with the humidity, it was polluted with the volatile gases of a world that had no intention of being tamed. But Marcus didn't stop. He kept his eyes on the crest of the hill, where the rest of the squad had already reached the top. Their voices faded into the wind, drowned out by the howling storm. It wasn't enough to stop him. "I'm not here to fail," he muttered through gritted teeth, the words barely escaping his lips as he fought against the weight of his own body. The final push, one more step and then another. His legs burned, his lungs screamed, but he reached the top. When he crested the hill, the other cadets stood silently, watching him from behind their helmets. Threx's piercing eyes narrowed. "Impressive, for a human." His voice carried a dark, cold edge, tinged with what Marcus could only interpret as begrudging respect. Marcus ignored him. He didn't need approval from anyone, least of all Threx. He was here to survive, and so far, that's exactly what he had done. But as Marcus stumbled toward the rest of the squad, his chest tightening from exhaustion, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He wasn't just a human here, he was the anomaly. The outcast. And in a place like Thornfall Academy, anomalies didn't survive for long. They were either broken or purged. A whisper ran through the group as Marcus moved past, his body aching but his resolve unwavering. He could hear it. It wasn't loud, but it was unmistakable. Why is he still here? The question, though subtle, had a weight to it. Marcus kept his gaze straight ahead, but the answer wasn't as clear to him as it used to be. Why was he still here? Was it because he was proving something to them, to the aliens who mocked him, to the academy that expected him to fail? Or was it simply because, after all this time, Marcus had learned one thing about himself? He wasn't going to quit. The following morning dawned with the same oppressive storm swirling above Thornfall Academy. The mountains were obscured by thick clouds, and the ground trembled under the weight of distant thunder. But Marcus didn't care about the weather anymore. His body ached, bruised and battered from days of relentless training. The mental fog he felt was as heavy as the suit he wore, but he pushed it aside. The day's exercise was the next test in the Academy's gauntlet, a fight, hand-to-hand combat. The cadets were split into pairs, and the instructors stood by, cold and detached, watching for weakness. Marcus didn't need to ask who his opponent would be. Threx was already glaring at him, cracking his knuckles in preparation. Marcus swallowed hard, his throat dry, but he didn't flinch. His hands were still sore from his earlier training. His knuckles were raw from the spar with Threx a few days ago, but he had no choice now. The Academy wanted blood. It wanted violence, and Marcus wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing him break. The instructors gave the signal, and the sparring ring was opened. The space was dimly lit, the atmosphere thick with the tension of hundreds of cadets watching. Marcus entered the ring, the weight of the environment suit still on his shoulders, and he could feel the eyes of the others following him. The hum of the Academy's power generators buzzed in the background, the sound only adding to the oppressive atmosphere. Marcus didn't look at them. He couldn't. Not now. This wasn't about proving anything to the others, it was about surviving. Threx stepped forward, his massive form looming over Marcus like a shadow. His exoskeletal armor creaked as he adjusted, his movements smooth and predatory. The alien's cold, multifaceted eyes locked onto Marcus, as though reading his every move, every breath. The alien was waiting for something, but Marcus wasn't going to give him the satisfaction. The signal came, and in a blur, Threx lunged. Marcus reacted on instinct, sidestepping and using the momentum of his opponent's attack against him. Threx's strike missed by inches as Marcus ducked under his massive arm. The alien's fist collided with the ring's floor, sending vibrations through the ground. Threx snarled, spinning to face him. The fight had begun in earnest. Threx was fast, faster than Marcus had anticipated. The alien's movements were fluid and precise, each strike designed to kill. But Marcus wasn't fighting to win. He wasn't fighting out of hatred or pride. He was fighting to survive. Threx's next move was a series of brutal strikes, each one aimed to crush, to incapacitate. But Marcus wasn't as strong as Threx, and he knew that. He had to outthink him, outlast him. He darted to the side, narrowly avoiding a crushing blow to his chest, but Threx was relentless, each attack coming faster than the last. Pain shot through Marcus's ribs as one of Threx's strikes landed hard, but Marcus didn't stagger. He absorbed the blow and twisted, using his shoulder to deflect the next punch. His mind raced. Every movement had to count. Every decision had to be the right one. "Not bad for a human," Threx growled, his voice low and dangerous. "But you're still soft, still weak." Marcus gritted his teeth, feeling the pressure in his body, the fatigue creeping in. He wasn't soft. He wasn't weak. He had made it this far. He wasn't about to lose now. Marcus countered, his mind calculating his next move with surgical precision. He ducked under Threx's fist, and in a fluid motion, he grabbed the alien's wrist, using the momentum to throw Threx off balance. The alien staggered, and for a split second, Marcus had the upper hand. Marcus moved in fast, targeting the weak points in Threx's armor, the places where the alien's joints met the exoskeleton. He struck quickly, hitting a pressure point behind Threx's elbow. The alien grunted, momentarily thrown off guard. But it wasn't enough. Threx recovered with a speed that surprised Marcus. Before he could react, Threx grabbed him by the collar, lifting him off the ground. The alien's cold eyes burned with intensity. "You think you're different? You think you're special?" Threx sneered, tightening his grip. "You're just another soft, fragile mammal." Marcus gasped for air, his vision blurring. His body was breaking, but his will was. He wasn't going to give in, not now. The pain coursed through him like fire, but he ignored it, his mind focused. The only thing that mattered was survival. In a desperate move, Marcus slammed his knee into Threx's side, right where the armor was weakest. The alien's grip faltered for a moment, and that was all Marcus needed. With a sharp twist, he broke free from Threx's hold and shoved the alien back with all his remaining strength. Threx staggered, stunned by the force of the push. Marcus didn't wait. He pressed the advantage, his body moving on instinct as he landed a series of blows to Threx's torso. It wasn't a flawless victory, it wasn't a crushing defeat. But for the first time, Marcus could see something in Threx's eyes: hesitation. The alien wasn't sure what to make of him. Threx backed away, his breathing heavy. His chest was heaving, his armor cracked in several places, his body bruised and battered. He stood tall, but his pride was shattered. "Enough," the instructor's voice echoed, a cold command cutting through the silence. "Both of you step back." Marcus stood there panting, his body aching. His hands were covered in alien blood, and his mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. He had done it. He had survived. But the price had been high. The cadets watched him, their expressions unreadable. Some looked at him with contempt, others with fear. But for the first time, Marcus didn't care. The instructors called for a break, but Marcus didn't join the others. He retreated to the corner of the ring, his body trembling from exhaustion and pain. His mind raced with the realization: surviving Thornfall Academy wasn't just about physical endurance. It was about something deeper. It was about proving to everyone, including himself, that he wasn't just human. He was more. The hours after the fight were a blur for Marcus. The adrenaline that had powered him through the sparring match began to wear off, leaving him exhausted and sore. His body ached from the brutal exertion, every muscle screaming for rest, but he didn't allow himself the luxury of sleep. Not yet. As the other cadets filed out of the arena, some offering quick, guarded glances toward him, Marcus didn't linger. He walked back to his quarters with heavy steps, his mind focused on the sting of Threx's words. Soft, fragile, mammal. He knew the others would be talking about him. The fight, his performance, the way he had held his ground. It was only a matter of time before the whispers began, and that was something Marcus couldn't escape. He could hear them as he passed the dining hall, the low murmurs in the hallways, the faint echoes of laughter. They were talking about him just like he'd expected. His presence at Thornfall Academy, this human anomaly, had become a subject of fascination and mockery. "Did you see that fight? A human, fighting like a berserker," said one cadet, his voice laced with amusement. Marcus didn't need to look to know it was Carect, the quadruped from Drellin VI. The disdain in his tone was unmistakable. "Soft-skinned mammal," another voice sneered. "He's not soft, he's something else," came a quieter response. Marcus couldn't make out the voice, but the words held a hint of something different, something almost respectful. Marcus didn't stop. He didn't turn to face them. He just kept walking, his mind consumed by the lingering exhaustion from the fight, the weight of the stairs, and the pain that shot through his ribs with every breath. He had made it through the fight, but he knew this battle was far from over. Thornfall Academy wasn't just testing him physically, it was testing his mind, his resolve. And the real challenge was what was coming next. That evening, as Marcus lay on his cot, trying to find some comfort in his aching body, a shadow fell across his doorway. He didn't need to look up to know who it was. The door slid open with a soft hiss, and a figure stepped inside. It was Krek, the alien cadet from Nathorax Prime, armored in overlapping black carapace. He didn't speak right away, standing in the doorway as if trying to make sense of something. "Not the brightest move, human," Krek said finally, his voice slower than usual, almost hesitant. There was something different in his tone this time. It wasn't mocking, but contemplative. Marcus didn't say anything, his eyes narrowing. "What do you want?" Krek stepped closer, his massive form casting a long shadow in the dim light of the room. "I've been watching you. You're different." Marcus sat up, his back aching. He met Krek's eyes, a mix of confusion and suspicion in his gaze. "Different how?" Krek shifted uneasily. "You don't fight like us, you don't fight to kill, you fight to survive." His mandibles clicked as if he was unsure how to phrase it. You fight like something we don't understand. Marcus didn't respond immediately, the weight of Kreck's words sinking in. It wasn't just the physical differences that set him apart from the others. It was the way he approached the battles, the way he handled himself in the face of adversity. He wasn't like the other cadets, driven by pride or the thrill of the fight. He was driven by something deeper, something primal. Kreck's eyes softened slightly, and for a moment Marcus could see the flicker of something resembling respect. But then, just as quickly, Kreck's expression hardened again. "I'm not here to be your friend," he said, his voice cold once more. "But I can't help but wonder. How long do you think you'll last, human? You've survived this long, but this isn't a game. Thornfall will break you." Marcus didn't flinch. His heart pounded, but he didn't show it. "I'll last as long as I need to. I don't break." Kreck studied him for a moment longer, then nodded slowly. "We'll see." With that, he turned and left, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts. The silence in the room was heavy, filled with the hum of the Academy's ventilation system. Marcus sat back on his cot, his body still aching, his mind racing. Kreck's words lingered, and for the first time since arriving at Thornfall, Marcus felt a flicker of doubt. Was he really as resilient as he believed? Was he just an anomaly, a human who had survived longer than expected, but ultimately doomed to fail? He didn't have an answer. All he had was the fire inside him, the determination to keep going, no matter what. The Academy's harsh atmosphere was unrelenting. The storm that raged above Thornfall had become a permanent fixture in Marcus's mind, an unspoken reminder of the unforgiving world around him. But today, the storm's fury was replaced by a new kind of terror. The announcement echoed over the loudspeakers early in the morning, just as Marcus had finished his cold, tasteless meal in the mess hall. "Attention all cadets. Survival exercise begins in 15 minutes. Prepare for high-intensity environmental simulation. Full gear required, no exceptions." Marcus's stomach twisted at the words. High-intensity environmental simulation. Every cadet had been through it. It was one of the Academy's signature trials meant to test endurance, survival instincts, and teamwork. The cadets would be dropped into a simulation of one of Thornfall's most hostile biomes, a trial designed to push them to the breaking point. And for Marcus, it was more than just a test. It was another opportunity to prove that he wasn't just a fragile human. He suited up quickly, donning the thick environmental suit that had become his second skin over the last few days. His ribs ached from the previous fight, but he pushed through the pain. There was no room for weakness. Not here, not now. The rest of the cadets were already gathered, silent and grim as they prepared for the simulation. Threx stood at the front of the group, his imposing frame casting a shadow over the others. His armor was intact, his stance rigid and confident as if he knew he would succeed. But Marcus could see the tension in the alien's eyes. Threx wasn't just here to survive, he was here to dominate. The instructors were absent, leaving the cadets to fend for themselves. It was a deliberate choice. Thornfall's training didn't hand out favors. No one was going to save them, not even the instructors. "Listen up," Threx's voice cut through the silence, and Marcus knew that this wasn't just a briefing, it was a challenge. "This is no ordinary exercise. You'll be dropped into the acid swamp of Drelk XII. It's a biome that will test your every limit. You'll need to extract the beacon and return to base. Failure is not an option." His eyes flicked to Marcus for a brief moment, his expression unreadable. "Survive or perish. We'll see who makes it." The group was divided into teams. Marcus was paired with a cadet named Caver, a towering figure from a methane world. His limbs were reinforced with bioorganic armor, and his species was known for its unyielding strength and resilience in extreme environments. But strength alone wouldn't be enough today. Survival would come down to more than just raw power. It would come down to the ability to think, adapt, and endure. As the simulation began, the cadets were dropped into the acid swamp. The air immediately became thick with the pungent stench of sulfur, and the ground beneath their feet felt soft and unstable. The atmosphere was heavy, dense with toxic gases that filtered through their suits' rebreathers, creating a constant low hum in their ears. The landscape was a nightmare. The swamp was dotted with jagged rock formations and pools of bubbling, acidic liquid. Strange, bioluminescent plants flickered in the murk, casting eerie shadows that seemed to shift with every movement. The rain came down in a steady, stinging mist, soaking through the suits and making the terrain slick and treacherous. But it was the acid rain that had the potential to break them. Each drop burned through the air, sizzling against the protective layers of their suits. The corrosive mist was designed to eat away at their gear over time, and Marcus could feel the weight of the challenge pressing down on him with each step. "Move," Threx barked from the front of the group. "We're not here to waste time." Marcus felt the pressure building. The other cadets moved forward with confidence, knowing they had the strength and the skills to survive. But Marcus wasn't like them. He wasn't built for this world. He was human, weak, fragile, that's what they all thought. But Marcus had learned something in the last few days. Survival wasn't about being the strongest or the fastest. It was about endurance, it was about adaptability, and it was about pushing through the pain. As the group pushed deeper into the swamp, the mist grew thicker, the air heavier. Marcus's lungs burned from the effort of breathing through the filtration system. His suit, once snug and comfortable, now felt like a tomb, pressing in on him with every movement. The weight of it seemed to grow with every step. "Keep up," Threx ordered, his voice sharp. Marcus wasn't sure how much longer he could last. His body was already exhausted from the previous days of training, and the acid rain was taking its toll on his suit. He could hear the faint hiss of the protective layers slowly starting to break down. Caver, his partner, moved with ease, the bioorganic armor on his limbs allowing him to glide through the swamp as if it were second nature. But Marcus was lagging behind, struggling to keep pace. "Come on, human," Caver's voice was gruff, impatient. "You're slowing us down." Marcus clenched his fists. He wasn't about to let anyone see him falter. "I'm not slowing you down," he muttered through gritted teeth. But his body was beginning to rebel. His ribs ached with every breath, and the pressure of the suit was wearing on him. The acid rain was seeping into his suit, burning through the outer layer, and the toxic atmosphere seemed to press in from all sides. He felt lightheaded, his vision beginning to blur at the edges. The beacon was ahead, visible in the distance, but it seemed miles away. His legs felt like lead, and every step felt like an eternity. "Push through it," Marcus told himself, ignoring the pain, the doubt. "Just keep moving, don't stop." As the group neared the beacon, the ground beneath them shifted suddenly, and Marcus's foot slipped. He stumbled, falling forward into a pool of acidic liquid. His suit sizzled as the acid made contact with the outer layer, the burning sensation creeping in. "Marcus," Caver shouted, but he didn't wait. He moved toward the beacon, leaving Marcus to struggle in the muck. Marcus scrambled to his feet, his body on fire from the acid's touch. His vision swam as he fought to regain his footing. The pain was intense, but he refused to scream. He had to survive. With a final, desperate effort, Marcus pushed forward, dragging himself through the thick, burning swamp. He didn't know how much longer he could go, but the beacon was just within reach. Almost there, he thought, his heart pounding in his chest. The ground shook beneath Marcus's feet as the massive creature emerged from the swamp's depths, its long, serpentine body gliding through the muck with unnatural speed. It was like something out of a nightmare. Its skin was slick and black, its scales reflecting the faint light from the distant storm, and its eyes, huge, glowing yellow orbs, locked onto Marcus with unnerving focus. His heart skipped a beat. The creature's jaws parted with a low hiss, revealing rows of sharp, needle-like teeth. The air around him was thick with the stench of sulfur and decay. Acidic rain dripped from his suit as he stood frozen, the beacon still clutched in his hands. He had to move, had to act. But everything in him screamed to run, to flee, to find safety. Instead, his mind focused on survival. The swamp was the perfect hunting ground for this creature, its predatory instincts honed over millennia of hunting in this toxic environment. And Marcus wasn't built for this. He wasn't fast, he wasn't strong, but he was resourceful. The creature lunged, its body rippling as it shot forward. The movement was too fast, too sudden, and Marcus barely had time to react. He instinctively ducked, dropping to the ground just as the beast's enormous jaws snapped shut inches above his head. The force of the wind from its movement pushed him backwards into the acidic water. The rain hissed as it hit his suit, burning through the outer layers. He struggled to get back on his feet, but the ground beneath him shifted again and his foot slipped. The creature was circling him now, its massive body slithering through the swamp, eyes never leaving him. It was closing in, fast. Marcus gritted his teeth, trying to steady himself, trying to breathe through the haze of pain and panic. The beacon, he couldn't let it go, he couldn't fail this mission. Not now. Then an idea struck him. His suit. It was damaged. His suit wasn't just protection from the elements. It was also a tool, and if he used it the right way, maybe, just maybe, he could use the swamp's own environment against the creature. The creature hissed again, rearing up for another strike, but Marcus was already moving. His fingers flew over the controls on his suit, accessing the emergency thermal dispersion settings. If he could trigger the cooling function, it might disorient the creature, giving him a chance to escape. The suit hummed as the temperature inside began to drop, a sharp contrast to the heat of the swamp. Marcus quickly activated the suit's flameless flare system, sending out a burst of cold vapor that created a thick mist around him. It wasn't much, but it was enough to confuse the creature. For a moment, the creature hesitated. Its glowing eyes scanned the mist, disoriented by the sudden shift in temperature. Marcus seized the opportunity. He darted to the side, using the terrain to his advantage. The swamp, though treacherous, offered enough cover to break line of sight. The creature swerved, but Marcus was already behind a large rock formation, his breathing rapid and shallow, heart pounding in his chest. He wasn't out of danger yet. The creature would catch his scent soon enough or hear the sound of his footsteps, but for now he had a moment. His mind raced. The beacon was still in his hand, but his suit was damaged, more than he had realized. The acid had begun to eat through the outer layers, and the pressure in his chest was growing with every breath. He had to get to the extraction point. But there was no sign of the other cadets. Threx had gone ahead leading the team. Caver was somewhere off in the distance, perhaps already at the beacon or too far to help. This mission was supposed to be a team exercise, but here he was, alone, battling a creature far beyond anything he had faced before. Then from the mist, a voice. "Marcus." He whipped his head around, trying to spot the source. The swamp was thick with mist, the visibility nearly zero. Then through the fog, a shape appeared, Caver. The methane-breathing cadet was moving swiftly, his armored form cutting through the mist with ease. He was carrying a large, makeshift weapon, what looked like a serrated harpoon of sorts. "You're still alive." Caver's voice, though gruff, held a trace of something different this time. Not mockery, but something almost like acknowledgement. "I'm still breathing," Marcus replied, his voice tight. His chest burned with every breath, the weight of his body threatening to collapse on him at any moment. The creature's hiss grew louder, and Marcus could hear it moving again, tracking him through the mist. It wasn't over. "Can you take it down?" Marcus asked, his voice strained. The swamp's thick air was making it hard to concentrate. Caver nodded grimly, his eyes sharp. "I can, but we need to work together." Without waiting for Marcus's response, Caver leaped into action. He charged at the creature, his harpoon raised. The massive beast turned, its glowing eyes locking onto him with predatory precision. Marcus didn't wait. He lunged forward, using the last of his strength to sprint, aiming directly for the creature's flank. The harpoon struck first, hitting the beast in the side. It screeched in pain, the sound reverberating through the swamp like thunder. The creature whipped around, its enormous jaws snapping toward Caver, but Marcus was already there, pulling the harpoon out and plunging it deeper into the beast's side. It screamed again, thrashing violently, but the pain had disoriented it, leaving it vulnerable. Caver moved quickly, avoiding the creature's wild strikes, and together they finally drove the harpoon deep into its chest. With a final, gurgling cry, the creature collapsed, its massive body sinking into the swamp with a heavy thud. The swamp fell silent. Marcus stood panting, his body shaking from the exertion, the adrenaline coursing through his veins. He turned to Caver, still gripping the harpoon. "Not bad for a human," Caver muttered, his voice laced with respect. Marcus didn't respond. He couldn't. He was too exhausted to speak, too overwhelmed by the reality of what had just happened. He had survived, again. But as he looked at the fallen creature, his mind wandered back to one question. How long could he keep surviving? Marcus's body trembled as the last of the swamp creature's form disappeared beneath the murky waters, but there was no time to relax. The ground beneath him groaned, an unsettling rumble that sent a jolt of fear through his already exhausted body. It wasn't just the swamp shifting, it was something else. The feeling was unmistakable. Something massive, something ancient, was moving just below the surface. "Get back," Caver shouted, his voice sharp with urgency. Marcus barely had time to react. Before he could take another step, the ground cracked open, sending a violent tremor through the swamp. A huge creature, far larger than the one they had just defeated, emerged with a terrifying roar, its scaled body glistening in the pale, acid-tinted light. It was like a cross between a serpent and a leviathan, its long, segmented body twisted out of the swamp, its massive jaws dripping with venom. This wasn't an animal that could be dealt with by brute force. This was a predator that hunted in the dark, waiting for prey to come to it. And now, Marcus and Caver were its prey. The creature towered over them, its dark, slick body coiling and thrashing as it prepared to strike. Its glowing red eyes locked onto Marcus, its hunger palpable in the air. The swamp was no longer just a testing ground, it was a death trap. "Move now," Caver shouted again, his voice tinged with panic for the first time since Marcus had met him. Marcus didn't hesitate. He bolted, his legs burning with the effort. But the swamp was unforgiving. Every step was a fight, and the acid rain continued to fall, stinging his exposed skin. His suit was already compromised, the acid having eaten through the outer layers, leaving his body vulnerable. The creature's roar split the air again, a deafening sound that rattled through Marcus's bones. It was too fast, too powerful. The ground shook with every movement of its enormous body, and its massive jaws snapped shut just inches from Marcus's back as he dove out of the way. "Caver," Marcus yelled, but the methane-breathing cadet had already moved ahead, his bioorganic armor giving him the speed and agility that Marcus could only dream of. He couldn't keep up, but he couldn't stop, not now. He scrambled for cover behind a cluster of jagged rocks, his pulse pounding in his ears. The creature, still hungry, circled above him, its massive form casting a shadow over everything in its path. Its head darted down, searching for any sign of movement, its keen senses locked onto Marcus's scent. He wasn't safe, not yet. "Think," Marcus muttered to himself, struggling to steady his breath. His fingers still gripped the beacon, but it felt like a worthless burden now. He needed to survive. He needed to get back to the extraction point, but that creature wouldn't let him get far. His mind raced. The swamp's ecosystem wasn't like anything he'd encountered on Earth. The creatures here were built for survival, tough, relentless, and capable of surviving in extreme environments. But Marcus had something they didn't. He had the one thing that would get him through this. Ingenuity. The creature moved closer, its enormous form sending waves through the swamp, causing the acidic waters to ripple violently. It was getting ready to strike again, its jaws opening wide, revealing rows of teeth sharp enough to pierce metal. Marcus swallowed hard. He could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him, the reality of being completely outmatched by the sheer power of this creature. But as he glanced around, his eyes caught on something small, something hidden in the shadows. A broken piece of debris from the earlier battle, a metal shard, jagged and sharp, partially buried in the muck. Marcus's mind clicked into place. He didn't need brute strength to survive. He just needed to make the creature think it was being attacked from all sides. If he could use the environment to his advantage, create a diversion, he might have a chance. With a surge of adrenaline, Marcus crawled toward the shard, his movements swift and controlled. The creature's attention was fixed on Caver, who had managed to get some distance. Marcus didn't waste a second. He grabbed the shard, gritting his teeth as the acidic water stung his exposed skin, and hurled it across the swamp. It struck the side of a rock, sending a loud clang echoing through the area. The creature turned, snapping its head toward the sound, momentarily distracted. "Now," Marcus shouted, pushing himself to his feet, pain lancing through his chest. The creature, momentarily disoriented, swiped its massive tail toward the noise, but it wasn't fast enough. Marcus used the opening to sprint toward the extraction point. His body screamed at him to stop, to give in to the exhaustion and the pain, but he kept moving. He didn't have a choice, not now. Behind him, the creature roared in frustration, its eyes glowing with malevolent fury as it tried to track Marcus through the thick swamp. Caver ahead glanced over his shoulder, his eyes wide. "What the hell are you doing, human?" he shouted. "I'm getting us out of here," Marcus said through gritted teeth. Caver's eyes flickered with something new, respect maybe. Whatever it was, he didn't hesitate. He turned back to the creature, drawing its attention for just a moment longer. That was enough. Marcus ran faster, his heart pounding in his chest as he neared the extraction point. He could see the distant glow of the extraction dome, the shimmering blue light marking their escape. But the creature was closing in again. Its massive form pushed through the swamp, the ground shaking with every step. Then just as Marcus reached the extraction dome's boundary, the ground trembled once more. A sudden, terrifying sound, like the snapping of bone, filled the air. The creature had collapsed. The moment Marcus crossed the threshold of the extraction dome, a wave of exhaustion hit him like a hammer. His legs buckled beneath him, and he collapsed to his knees, the beacon still clutched tightly in his hand. His breath came in ragged gasps, his suit drenched in sweat, the acidic rain from the swamp eating away at the outer layers. His ribs burned with every breath and his hands trembled, but the overwhelming sense of relief washed over him like a tide. He had made it. He had survived. Behind him, Caver staggered into the dome, his bioorganic armor glowing faintly under the artificial light. He was breathing heavily, his body slick with sweat, but he too was alive. "You made it," Caver said, his voice hoarse. He was the first to break the silence, though there was no sarcasm in his words this time. There was something different in his tone, respect, maybe even admiration. Marcus didn't respond. He was too tired, too drained to say anything. He looked down at the beacon in his hand, the object that had been the goal of the simulation, but now felt almost insignificant in the face of everything that had happened. The doors to the extraction chamber slid closed behind them with a soft hiss, sealing them inside. The dome was silent, save for the low hum of the Academy's life support systems. The atmosphere was sterile, almost clinical, and the artificial lights overhead flickered gently. The instructors were already there, standing silently in the shadows. They had been watching the entire time. Their faces were unreadable, their expressions cold as they studied the cadets who had made it through the trial. Marcus could feel their eyes on him, and for the first time the weight of his actions truly hit him. He wasn't just a human anymore. He was a cadet, an anomaly, an outlier, and the Academy had seen everything. Threx stood at the far end of the chamber, arms crossed, his massive frame casting a long shadow. He had been silent through the entire exercise, watching from the sidelines, but now he spoke. "You survived," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "But not because of strength, not because of speed. You survived because you adapted." Marcus looked up, his eyes locking with Threx's. There was no mockery in the alien's gaze, only a quiet respect that sent a shiver down Marcus's spine. "You didn't fight the swamp, you used it." Threx's voice softened slightly. "You made the terrain your weapon. I didn't expect that from a human." Marcus didn't know what to say. For the first time, he was hearing something from Threx that wasn't laced with contempt. It was recognition. The room fell silent, the weight of the moment heavy between them. Marcus stood, pushing himself to his feet despite the sharp pain in his chest. The adrenaline was wearing off and exhaustion was taking over. But he wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. "We're not done," the instructor called out, breaking the silence. "This exercise was not just about survival. It was about proving your worth. You've shown resilience. You've shown adaptability. But there is more to this academy than surviving the trials." Marcus's stomach twisted. He wasn't sure what to expect next, but he wasn't ready for more. He'd given everything he had in that swamp, and now it felt like the academy was asking for more than he could give. "The next phase begins tomorrow," the instructor continued, ignoring the cadets' fatigued expressions. "You will be assigned to new teams. Your survival skills will be tested again, but this time it won't just be your bodies on the line. It will be your minds, your ability to cooperate." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Cooperation. The Academy had never cared about that before. It was every cadet for themselves, no matter the cost. But now it seemed the rules were changing, or maybe Marcus had changed. Maybe he was no longer just a human among aliens. Maybe, just maybe, he had become something more, something they didn't understand yet. The instructors began to break off, leaving the cadets to themselves. But before Marcus could turn, a figure approached him from the side. "Caver, you've got guts," the methane-breathing cadet said quietly, stepping up to Marcus. "That wasn't easy, but I'll give you this. You've got a lot more going for you than I thought." Marcus glanced at him, nodding the lack of mockery in Caver's voice. Instead, there was something almost thoughtful, like Caver was actually seeing him, not just the human, not the anomaly, but Marcus. "You know," Marcus said, his voice hoarse from the strain, "I didn't expect to survive this long." Caver's eyes met his, and for a moment the tension between them eased. "You're not just surviving," Caver said. "You're showing us that there's something in humanity we can't ignore." The words hung in the air, an unexpected compliment that sent a strange feeling through Marcus. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't just a human anomaly at Thornfall. Maybe he was becoming something more. And then, as the cadets slowly made their way out of the extraction chamber, Marcus felt a strange weight lift from his shoulders. This wasn't just about surviving anymore. It wasn't about proving them wrong or showing them how strong he could be. It was about proving to himself that he belonged here, that humanity had a place in the galaxy, not as a fragile species to be pitied, but as something far more. As he walked out into the sterile hallways of Thornfall Academy, a new sense of purpose settled within him. He had made it through the worst the Academy had thrown at him so far, but the real test was just beginning.